It would only be fitting to start this speech in one way, which is, nice to see you!
To see you!
Okay, that's an impromptu gag from yesterday, right. So, there are only 2.5 hours left between you and the dance floor, and all I ask is that you save enough drink for 4 toasts, and at the end of it all, Malcolm and Mark do not want to hit me. Okay, that went on well. So we're going to take a slow meander through Mike's romantic history.
I think George does as well. It's fine, it's very quick.
And we'll probably we'll all learn something slightly short. As Mike said, I am the dialer best man. Due to his own social inadequacies, he had no better options. Sorry, gentlemen. He had no better options than me, so he procured my services. The real difficulty with doing the best man speech for Michael Grumbridge is the wildly held perception and entirely true acknowledgement that he's a complete pain in the arse.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this was really summed up last night. Mike and I went for a final drink in the hotel bar, and Mike turned to me and said, the problem is, Crimbo, I just think most people are tossers.
I do believe it.
But he didn't use the word tosser, he used the word significantly stronger, which I'm not sure is suitable for this. The reason that we're friends is I just think you're less of a tosser than anyone else. Fortunately, today, on this fantastic day, as we've all celebrated already, Mike has secured one redeeming factor, which resolves all of his shortcomings in Georgie. I realised Georgie was going to be a welcome audition to our strange little clan in May last year, when Mike and I were returning from a weekend in Paris, a very successful, very boozy rugby weekend in Paris. And Georgie, on a Sunday afternoon, took it upon herself to get to St Pancras Station to surprise Michael at the longest champagne bar in the world. Not only was the champagne a measure of her true perfection, but she then decided to get on our wavelength, bin 2 bottles of champagne, and 2 hours later we're doing very, very bad rounds of karaoke in an Uber driving around North London. I'm not sure anyone got 5 stars on that day. Georgie, it does not take long to realise what an absolute superstar you are. And this really became apparent, this is getting soppy already, isn't it? It really became apparent when, for those who don't know, many of our very good friends went to Cornwall recently. And on their return, I inquired about what the highlight of the trip was. This wasn't one of Michael's breakaway pints in the ferry boat, but actually the highlight of all of our friends was Georgie's company.
Yeah.
I've known Michael to be a complete pain in the arse for many, many years, but it seems that you are the rock now behind him. Not only, as he said, are you fantastically beautiful, you have a way of making everyone feel at ease with one of your devilishly great smiles, and from time to time you really do have a wicked sense of humour. So the first, that was meant to be funnier, the first toast of the day is to Georgie. I've missed out loads of this. Okay, I've missed that bit, never mind. No, missed that bit. Okay, it's far too late for this. So, can everyone still hear me? Let's go with that. We're in. As much as it's really difficult to say a nice word about Michael, it's quite the opposite to say a nice word about the bridesmaids. Mark has set me up quite nice on this one. Lola, I'm not going to mention the last time I saw you. But thank God, what I will say, Mark, is thank God the juggler didn't decide to get his sharp blades out and juggle over your nether regions that day at the Cutty Sark.
Maybe he's more pleased about that than I am.
I am Dialer Best Man, but I can also be Dialer Groom. So if you ever need me, I am available on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Tinder, Bumble, Happen, Social Concierge, and I'm actually still on Plenty of Fish. So if you need to look me up, then please do. There are many traditions that go hand in hand with the best man and the bridesmaids. Slow burn it off. However, I'm just going to say just one. And that is thanks to making Georgie look quite so delicious today. However, I actually feel... Delicious, not a good bit? However, I actually think, and from the heart, that it probably really wasn't very much effort. Because the three of you really are natural beauties. And you've done a fantastic job today. So the second toast of the evening from myself is to the bridesmaids. It's going all right? Okay, I've had the pleasure of knowing Malcolm and Sally for quite some time. Almost long enough that Malcolm now understands every other word I say. I think they were really summed up last night as we took a taxi to the restaurant for a bite to eat before today, when Zoe, Mike's sister, turned to Mike and said, "Mike, you're getting married tomorrow." To which point Malcolm turned around and said, "The light phasing at Piccadilly Circus really is bad." So, Michael, on your speech, I think you've done a pretty good job to suck the romance out where maybe Malcolm didn't quite have it.
It is crap.
It is crap. It is crap. Recently, I got to know Mark and Mindy, particularly over the last kind of 24 hours. What's become very apparent... Oh, no, well. The first time we met was at the joint 30th and 60th party we had on the river a short while ago. What became quickly apparent is that Mark is a particularly good orator and very hard to follow. But also, Mark has a particularly good interest in the social clubs of London. A conversation I didn't expect to have last night was with Mark, Georgie's father, and Louis, our reverend for this afternoon, talking about the finer points of gentlemen's clubs in London. But nonetheless, we got through it, and Louis was still able to talk by the time we got to the service today. So, in a very clumsy way, it's meant to be slightly more sophisticated. I'd like to raise a drink, please, to Malcolm and Sally, Mark and Mindy. Parents, Okay, right. The depth, I hope. I think we Brits are very aware of the phrase, "no offence, but." And generally what follows is not only offensive, but particularly so. For anyone who's hung around with Michael, they know that he has his particular version of this, which is, "I just have this thing." And what follows, "I just have this thing," is one of Mike's particularly vehement and rather bizarre opinions on life. I truly understood this morning when, at 6 o'clock, Mike got out of bed to open the curtains to claim, "I don't like sleeping in the dark, I get disorientated, it makes me feel like I'm on a ferry." So from 6 o'clock this morning, we were awake, contemplating Mike's strange things in life. But I think the time when it really got cemented, Mike and I went to Central America after we graduated from university. We had 6 weeks of unadulterated hedonism piling around Central America. However, things didn't quite get off to the very good start. On the first night, Mike and I flew into Cancun, took a short ferry to Isla Mujeres, the island of ladies, and quickly headed to the hostel bar. Mike took it upon himself to order us 2 rather large tequila shots. Not understanding quite how big they were, nor how strong they were, Mike and I chucked them back, being the vigorous young athletes that we were. Unfortunately, they hit the bottom of our stomachs like a rock, and we both scarpered in different directions. I managed to make it to the lavatories. Mike, unfortunately, made it to the end of the beach, where he promptly was sick all over the place. I'm not sure he's really learned how to drink since, and last weekend in Taunton very much was the case. We returned from that trip, and both started our careers. Mike at McCann Erickson, and I joined another company. And I think Mike's boss summed it up quite nicely in his inaugural annual appraisal, when he said, "Mike, everything's going fantastically well, as we'd all expect. You're doing very well in the output, your performance is great. But if you don't know the answer, it's probably best just to shut up.
There we go.
Thanks, Mark. The first laugh I like. Okay, so throughout Mike and my friendship, on numerous occasions he's claimed this is where the depth comes in. This is the finale. Mike's tried to claim that he has 3 tattoos, when in fact he has just one. The word "if" tattooed on his foot, which, as Zoe read out today, is an exceptional poem about the traits of a man. And for Michael, it's a fitting tribute to his grandfather, and something that he wears particularly well. In my opinion, he's also a fitting tribute of himself, and the man that he aspires to be, and successfully does every day. For those who know the poem, "If," and Zoe obviously knows it very well, Mark, I'm sure you do as a scholar, it's written in iambic pentameter, and it also has a rather bizarre rhyming pattern. What I'm about to say is neither of those things. But what this is my fitting tribute to Mike, my very, very best mate, Georgie, his new wife. So bear with me. I'm going to read this bit because hopefully it'll be better than the rest. If you can sail the greatest oceans and conquer Chiswick's green and pleasant lands, and find your merry way home, full of tales of hitchhiking, injuries, and foreign sands. If you can speak a lot of hot air, and not let hot air be your master. If you can run a 3:26 marathon, and therefore not need to cheat, like some, to make it any faster. If you can discharge yourself from Edinburgh Royal Infirmary, and not remember being there. And return to the Wally Dug pub the next day, with stitches, vigour and flair. If some of your finest losses were the result of a penny spun, then forgive you we shall, my dear old friend, as we know there are many more won. If a good night's sleep for you means several sleepwalking laps around the boudoir, yet you always return to bed happily, having not wandered too far. If you can argue black is white, and white is black the very next day, and not miss a second of sport, regardless of what is at play. If you can pluck an English rose, against the odds convince her to be your wife, then well done to you, good luck to her, and we wish you a long and happy life. There is one more line. At the end of it, we're going to lose our shit and then go to the dance floor. If together you can turn on life's challenges, turn the cheek and never look glum. Got it? Then we'll all raise a glass to you and toast to you, Mr. and Mrs. Grum. That's it.